is up, all you individuals out there? It's me, full-time anime man, and I am finally here with part 14 of What If Deku Was a Firewolf. Now, yes, it has been a while since I've finally gotten back onto this thing, but I now have an ending for it. This is not going to be that ending, but the next episode will be the final part. So, I hope you all enjoy this episode, and let's go ahead and get into it. This is What If Deku Was a Firewolf, Part 14. Hope you all enjoy. Where we last left off, Izuku had met with death after All For One attempted to strike his mother with his finger blades. During his time in the afterlife, Izuku was given two options: to either take the power of the Phoenix Force and become the guardian of the Earth, or take One for All and return home to his family and friends. Izuku went back home, but then discovered that his fire quirk was gone. And then he comes to find out that at the last second, right when he was stabbed by All For One's finger blades, All For One had taken Izuku's quirk. A few days would pass, and Izuku, along with Endeavor and All Might, were wearing professional suits while riding in a limousine. They arrive at a sort of conference. There were thousands of people, and there were a few police officers standing nearby. Endeavor looks at Izuku. Are you ready? Yes, I'm ready, Sensei. As they get out of the car, they are immediately met with flashes of lights from people's cameras and people holding microphones to Izuku, asking him questions, silly questions if I may add, such as, can silver bullets hurt him, and is it true that his fire quirk is gone? Izuku does not respond. As the lights continue to flash, a flash of light would send us into a flashback. Just a few days after Izuku had informed his mother that his fire quirk was gone, and All Might and Endeavor informing Izuku that at the last second when All For One stole his quirk, that he tried to warn All Might that he has it. Therefore, he died, taking Izuku's fire with him. Anyway, he was visited by his sensei, Endeavor. Oh, hello, Sensei. Hello, Izuku. I've come to tell you some news, and it's not very good. It's about the people of Japan. Oh, and what about them? They're not very fond of your actions, the way you dealt with the villains that attacked you that night. When you killed some of them. Seriously? I was fighting for my life. I was surrounded by 1,000 bad guys that wanted me dead. Endeavor nodded his head in agreement. That may be so, but lots of people didn't see that part. They only saw you going on a rampage, and to be fact, you did kill 241 villains that night. Izuku then flops down onto his hospital bed while resting his head in his hands, leaning forward. Endeavor would walk over to the boy and comfort him. Now, I know what it's like. People are going to judge you for your actions, and sometimes you just need to take responsibility. And more importantly, try your best to not sound so desperate for the people to be on your side. You just simply need to say what you need to say. Izuku then takes in a deep breath and he says, okay. A few days would pass, and Izuku would be sitting in his bed in the dorms that Yue had made for him and his mother to be more well protected of. He would sit in his bed and think about what he's going to say to the people. When he couldn't come up with anything, he decided to enter his mind state and ask the wolf himself what he should say. The wolf would say that if he's going to face the people, even uncertain about what he's going to say, then there is a certain someone that he needs to face. The werewolf inside, basically himself. Izuku sighs and says, "You're right." We then flash back to the present Izuku is standing at the podium. Everyone continues to yell at Izuku things like, "You're a murderer," and "What you did was not okay," and "What a hero does." But other people who are actually defending Izuku would be like, "He thought that his mom had died. He was in a life or death situation. What would you have done?" But Izuku would silence them all, asking them if they could please be quiet. They all do, and Izuku takes in a deep breath. "First of all, I would like to apologize for my actions. What I did that night, it was not okay. It's just at that moment when I thought I lost my mother forever, I thought that was it. That I had lost everything, and that I had nothing else to lose. But I promise you all I am working with professionals that could help me tame this beast that dwells within me. But what if I told you that I didn't need their help? I spoke to the beast, and he and I, we now see eye to eye. And now, he is well a part of me as I am of it." Izuku takes off his coat and tie and takes the mic off the stand, and he paces back and forth. "Being a hero, it has its ups and downs. I've learned that the hard way. And there will be times where a hero will have no choice but to do something drastic measures in a life or death situation." Izuku then steps off the stage and into the crowd, with people moving aside for him to walk deeper into. Suddenly, he then changes into his werewolf form in front of everybody. This thing that you see before you, the thing that you all have seen fight, this is me. But I ask all of you to look forward to what I have to offer, to this city, and to you. And someday, when I graduate, it will be my job to protect this city and everyone in it. So I beg of you, please have faith in me. Please." Izuku extends a hand out to a stranger. "Take my hand, and let me continue to grow and learn." The stranger does not take Izuku's hand, but instead, he backs away. Izuku looks down at the ground in shame, but then he felt someone grab his hand. He looks and he sees Yaoyorozu smiling at him, and Uraraka and Sue, Denki, Todoroki, Bakugo, Ojiro, Jiro, Aoyama, Koda, Siro, even Mineta, and Ida, if I mentioned him. I'm pretty sure I did. Moving on. And soon, they were accompanied by other people that crowded around Izuku, placing a hand on him, saying that they believe in him and that they want to give him a chance. And so, that comes to an end. Izuku was actually able to win over the people of Japan once more. It's the next day, and Aizawa and All Might would go to the parents of Class 1A asking their permission if their students could live in dorms. Izuku and his mother Inko had already been living there for their own safety in case the League of Villains would try to attack them again. One night, when it was almost time to sleep, everyone was knocking at Izuku's door, and Izuku would invite them in. Now, they would all ask him, like, why do they feel so normal? Like, about a few days ago, they felt, like, incredibly strong, like, they had werewolfism, and they wanted to know what happened to it. And Izuku would explain that since that day that he died, their curse was lifted from them, and now they're all normal again. They would all be kind of down about that because they actually really did like being like Izuku. And then Kirishima would actually ask them if he could make them like him again, because it was a lot of fun. And Izuku would immediately tell him no. The reason why is because eventually, whenever they reach 4-star generals, they can turn to werewolves during a full moon. And eventually, they could grow stronger one day and take Izuku down and take his alpha title. And besides, even with all that going around, that's his burden to bear, not theirs. That's what he told them. To which everyone would be kind of sad about that, but Kirishima would actually say that it's actually okay, because we're already a wolf pack. We look after each other, right? Everyone would nod their heads in agreement, and Izuku would tell them all that, alright, he needs to get some sleep, so everyone skedaddle. They all leave, except for Uraraka and Yaoyorozu, and they spent the night together, if you know what I mean. It's the next day, and Class 1A was by their... they were told by their teachers that it was time that they create new moves to improve their quirks for the future. Izuku would be given a special training treatment from an elderly man named Gran Torino, with recovery woman nearby just in case One For All messes up his body again. Izuku would break his bones a few times before Torino would tell Izuku to treat One For All as if it was his fire quirk. Just let it flow through. And so Izuku does, and this results in him discovering full cowling. Torino would challenge Izuku to catch him, and so the two would play a game of tag. But in doing so, it would kind of destroy the gymnasium. But in doing so, their game ended with Izuku catching Gran Torino. When training had finished, the students were informed of the license exams, and so for the past few weeks, they have been training to the maximum, and even with Izuku learning a few new tricks with One For All. Anyway, in one particular night, everyone was asleep in their beds, and Izuku had an unwanted dream. A dream of that time when he was beaten by the Nomu to death, and the day that All For One stabbed him. It was just a dream, but it was as if Izuku could still feel the knives in his chest, re-entering his body, just piercing through his heart. He woke up screaming and started feeling around his scar area and noticing that it was just a dream. It was just a dream. It was just a dream. It's okay. Now he would start to lose control of his breathing, but then Inko opens the door and asks Izuku if he's okay, but Izuku would just respond with sobbing. Inko would hug her son until he would calm down. Izuku would talk about how he's glad that this didn't happen to Inko, and that... Sorry, I lost my spot. Izuku would talk about how he's glad that this didn't happen to Inko, and that he just wants these scars on his chest to go away. Inko would urge Izuku to look at her. Son, it's already happened, and nothing is going to undo it. You can always run away from your hallucinations, but no dream can heal these scars, son. How about instead of wishing these scars away, you look at them and you learn from them and show the world what you have been through. Be the hero that I know you can be through all the obstacles that life has to throw at you. I know this because you're my hero. Izuku smiles as he hugs his mom. We fade to black. And then reappear at the licensing exam. Everyone was wearing their hero suits, including Izuku, but he felt like he had to make a few modifications to it, just in case he needed to use the beast. Everything gets started, only this time Bakugo and Shoto actually stay with Izuku because of two reasons. One, they're practically brothers and they protect each other, and two, everyone in Japan knows that Izuku's fire quirk is gone and they feel like other students are going to come after him because they think that he's going to be an easy target. I mean, heck, even the rest of Class 1A bands together to protect Izuku. Though things seems to be going well that they're protecting him, they're hardly getting enough points to pass, and Izuku decides to say something about it. Everyone, listen, we can't keep going on like this. Right now, we are on a race against the clock, and you guys hardly have any points to pass. We need to split up and do our thing. Now I understand that you guys are worried about me, but don't. Izuku powers up one for all. I'll be fine. They all nod their heads in agreement and they split up. And just as they did, almost immediately, a group of other students are already coming after Izuku. Izuku smiles and charges up full cowling, and then zooms past them, tagging all of their targets on their bodies, giving Izuku almost enough points to pass. But FYI, the only thing that will be different in this story will that Kami will actually be there in the licensing exam, while Toga is out there Horikoshi knows where. Anyway, everyone in Class 1A would be lucky enough to claim enough points to move on, which would happen to be the rescuing test. Each student will be pointed by their actions and saving the civilians. The only difference is that Shoto and Inasa will not have as much beef, but Inasa will still have some beef towards Todoroki, to which you will see later. The test will begin, and Class 1A would be doing great. That is until Gang Orca and his squad show up. He and his henchmen would start attacking the heroes, trying to get to the civilians. Things would go kind of the same for Shindo, trying to buy Izuku some time to get the innocents out of there, causing an earthquake in front of the henchmen to stop them in their tracks. But Gang Orca would paralyze Shindo, and Shoto would step in, blasting ice at him, but Orca would do his thing and just shatter his ice into powdery snow. And then Inasa would step in, throwing heavy winds at Orca's direction, but Shoto would throw flames, which would redirect their attack away from Gang Orca. The two would argue for a moment, and even Inasa would say something like, "Oh, you're just annoying, just like your father." To which Shoto was taken off by that. "What did you say about my father?" "Ugh, nothing, just don't get in my way." They both then throw their attacks at Gang Orca again, but this time when it countered, their attack, Shoto's fire was redirected at not only Shindo, but the civilians that were right behind him. It looks like something bad is about to happen, but then Izuku stands in the path of the flames, blocking it from everyone. Izuku screams, thinking that it's about to hurt, until he looks and sees that the flame's not hurting him.
Started this violence.
And Shindo's just fine. Although he looks at Shoto and the other guy from the other school, he doesn't know his name, and he angrily turns into his werewolf form, and using One for All, he then flicks the fire away. Izuku would breathe heavily, but he notices that his hands and his head are on fire, but he doesn't pay any attention to that. People are saying things like, what the heck? His fire quirk is gone, right? How is he not bothered by the flames? Izuku would look at Shoto and Inasa, yelling at them in a deep voice. What are you two arguing about? Your squabbling damn near caused a fatal injury to these people. Stop this arguing right now and just get them out of here. Izuku would look at Gang Orca's minions, and they would all back away in fear. They all saw how Izuku was back on that day when the villains attacked. They sure as heck didn't want to become his victims. To which, they weren't, as long as they don't hurt his mom. Anyway, they run away through the hole that they came from, but Gang Orca stepped forward, accepting Izuku's challenge. The two would try to use their stunning abilities on each other, only for that to come to a stalemate, and it not working on one another. Therefore, Izuku decided to go in for a direct assault, relentlessly clawing and scratching at Gang Orca, tearing his clothes. The battle between Wolfie Izuku and Orca intensifies. Gang Orca gets some distance away from Izuku, and he would reach into his back pocket and pull out a bottle of water and pour it on his head. His muscles would start to expand and throb. Izuku growls loudly while flexing his claws, and Gang Orca would start beating on his chest, saying, "Yes! Come on, let's go!" Izuku would then charge at Gang Orca, and Gang Orca would charge at Izuku, and the two would leap into the air with their fists drawn backwards, ready to strike. But then the notification, the alarm goes off saying that the test is over and that all the civilians are now in a safe place. That causes Gang Orca and Izuku to bump into each other, and they fall to the ground. Izuku gets up and he offers Gang Orca a hand, and he takes it getting up. The two would compliment each other on their power skills, and Gang Orca would even promise Izuku a few extra points for putting his life on the line to save the civilians. Soon, he was approached by Shoto and Inasa, who apologized for their reckless endangerment. Now, duly noted, due to their, reckless endangerment, they will have to make up for that. Therefore, they will not be passing in the licensing exam. Anyway, Shoto would also talk about how Izuku was on fire, but he didn't seem to mind it. To which Izuku looked down to his hands. You're right, Shoto. They were on fire, but I didn't feel the burn. Even informing Bakugo about it, who was also baffled by this. A few hours would pass, and it is night, and everyone is supposed to be asleep except for Izuku, who thinks back. He couldn't stop thinking about how the fire didn't burn him. But then he had a small hypothesis. He assumed that even though his fire quirk is gone, he still has the body to withstand high temperatures, even without his own flames being attached to him. And so, to test out his hypothesis, he grabbed a pail, some water, a bucket, a pail is a bucket, sorry, some soap, and a can of hairspray. He would then mix all these items together and would make soap, but with hairspray in it. Anyway, he scoops up the bubbles and then takes a lighter and then lights it on fire, and the bubbles burst into flames, but it didn't burn Izuku's skin. Izuku would continuously do this for the rest of the night, or at least until he ran out of hairspray. It's the next day, and Izuku had been feeling extremely exhausted after not getting enough sleep last night, because he was playing with fire most of the time. didn't get enough sleep. Anyway, he and his classmates are introduced to the Big Three, and as usual, Muriel will be excited about meeting the New Year students, and Nejire would be asking impossible questions, such as what's under Shoji's mask, even asking if Koda could control Izuku while in his wolf form. The two would actually stare at each other. Could he actually do that? Anyway, Tamaki would be silent, and Mirio would ask if he could fight everyone at the same time, except for Izuku, who was just not in the mood, for he felt too tired. Anyway, somewhere in the gymnasium, everyone readies themselves while Izuku stands on the side just watching. Mirio would phase through the ground, leaving his clothes behind, and takes out everyone in a mere instance and claims victory. He eggs on Izuku to come over and fight him, but Izuku refuses. No, I'm good. Mirio would get an idea to get Izuku mad enough to make him want to fight him. You know, he's probably not even worth the fight. I mean, if the purple-headed guy can give me a good fight than he can, then what does Izuku have to offer? Izuku angrily looks at Mirio. What did you say? I mean, I'm just saying, you may as well just go home and hang up your hero suit. After all, it's going to be hard for you to be a hero without your fire quirk, right? Mirio then looks at his team and whispers, "Hey guys, I think it's working." Nejire's face and Tamaki's face would go white from fear. What's wrong? They would then point behind Mirio, and Mirio looks and gives out a small scream and jolts in the air. For Izuku was standing in front of him in his werewolf form, looking down at him. Izuku says, "Okay, two things. One, that's a very touchy subject, so please don't. Two, is that a challenge?" The naked Mirio would then start to tremble from fear and says, Hey now, I was just trying to get you riled up so that you could fight me. I really didn't mean nothing by it." Izuku then said, "Wish granted." Izuku would then slam his fist down to the ground, but Mirio was barely able to dodge, and Izuku's fist made a crater in the ground underneath them, crackling the concrete. Mirio would then land a few lucky punches on Izuku, but Izuku had finally understood Mirio's pattern. He knew that he couldn't rely on his eyes to know where he's going to come from, so he uses his hearing. He closes his eyes. Everyone watches closely. Izuku can hear Mirio coming from the ground underneath him. He then readies himself, and Mirio pops from the ground and with his fist in the air. But Izuku then grabbed his fist and then Hulk slammed him to the ground. He then, while Mirio was on the ground, he then lands a few punches on his chest, knocking the absolute air out of him, not even giving him a chance to permeate. After seeing a few bruises on his chest, he says, "Do you give up?" He then tries to phase through the ground, but Izuku punches him in the face, asking him again, "Do you give up?" Mirio raises his hands up and says, "I give up. I give up." Izuku then backs off and hands him his clothes, and then turns back to his humanoid form. He then apologizes for his outburst, but Mirio would tell him no, it's okay, and that he shouldn't have said what he said. He even promises to put in a good word for him to his mentor. Izuku was confused. Who is he talking about? Next would be the hero's work studies. Izuku would go to Gran Torino and ask him if he could give him any recommendations for any hero corporations. He would talk about a man named Night Eye, and he would tell him that All Might is the person that he wants to talk to about him. He would go to All Might and ask him if he could, but All Might would object to these terms. But Izuku would insist that he give him a good word to Night Eye and convince him to let him into his corporation. All Might would have Mirio come up to the lounge, and Mirio would ask Izuku what is his motive for being a hero. Izuku would tell him that at first he wanted to be the #1 hero, but after his first and second encounter with death, he simply just wants to be a hero and protect the people and the city. Wait, you died before? Yes, but I'll tell you about it some other time. Mirio would agree to take Izuku to Sir Night Eye's corporation, and was told that in order to guarantee entry, he would need to make him laugh, or of which Izuku was not very comedically good at. In fact, he can't remember the one time that he even pulled a joke. In fact, he can't even remember the last time he laughed, well, except for that one time with All For One, but he was fake laughing then. Anyway, they get up to the office, and when they open the door, they are greeted with Bubble Girl in a tickle torture machine, with Sir Night Eye oddly just staring at her. He then turns his attention to the door and gives Izuku a death glare, with Izuku countering it. Night Eye then adjusts his glasses and says, "So, this is the student that took you in a fight, huh?" Mirio then said, "Yes, sir, and his name is Izuku Midoriya." Izuku steps forward, saying, "Hello," and Night Eye would walk towards Izuku, looking deep into his eyes, and he would see determination. Well, what, sir? Aren't you going to make me laugh?" "No, sir." "Why?" "Because I'm not a comedian. In fact, I can't really recall the last time I even cracked a smile." Night Eye then said, "Interesting. Get out." "I'm sorry, but are you not giving me a chance just because I refuse to crack a joke?" "Yes, as a hero, there's more to it than just saving lives. You also have to show other parts of you that people may find interesting. And a little humor always does the trick." All Might and his signature smile would always help shine the hope inside of people. But you're just a blank sheet of paper with no qualities written in it. And I refuse to have people such as yourself in my corporation. So, he points at the door. There's the door. Izuku says, "So, you want me to be like All Might?" "Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you, sir, but I don't want to be like All Might. I want to be my own hero. And it just so happens that my teachers suggested you to me, saying that you're the best option. Also, I don't express myself much often because most people are looking for serious students who take any situation seriously, such as, yes sir, no sir, that kind of stuff. Even my sensei Endeavor, who trained me since childhood." Night Eye then said, Interesting. "Mirio, Bubble Girl, you two step out for a moment. I wish to speak with Midoriya alone." "Yes, sir." "Say it with your chest." "Yes, sir." They then leave the room, and it's just Izuku and Night Eye. Night Eye sits at his office chair, and Izuku stays standing. Night Eye says, "I don't think you quite understand the situation you have. You see, you have All Might's power. One for all." Izuku is surprised. "Wait, he knows about that?" Night Eye continues, "One for all makes you more like All Might than you think, kid. Whenever you're going to throw a punch with such a tremendous force, people are going to see All Might when you do it. The very moment you take All Might's power is the moment you took All Might's responsibilities. Now, you have to become the #1 hero, as to not smear All Might's name or disgrace his power. Izuku looks down at his hands. Although I personally don't think you're worthy of One for All. You know something? Or you want to know something? Mirio was supposed to get One for All, but you just so happened to go and get yourself killed, and had your quirk taken. What you did was really reckless and idiotic. Izuku grunts and balls up a fist. Anger surges through his body. Izuku says, "Well, sir, it wasn't my intention to get killed, or even to take All Might's power. I saw my mother in danger and just die, and my body automatically moved. And I wouldn't change that for the best of mankind." Nada then said, "And once again, look where it got you. You ended up killing many people. You ended up getting yourself stabbed to death. All Might gave you his quirk to save you. And in the end, you lost your fire quirk. The one thing that makes you what you say, Fire Fang, is gone." Izuku leans in closer in frustration and says, "Are you saying that I should have let my mother die?" Nadai then said, "That's not what I'm saying at all. But since we're on the subject matter, I want to ask you something. Why didn't you just grab your mother and carry her out of the path of the blades? Why didn't you just break the blades with your tremendous strength?" Izuku says, "Well, sir, I didn't have time to think. The only thing I had was action." Izuku then felt around his chest area and his stomach area where the scars were. And these scars are the proof of that. Nadai sighs and says, "Alright, but I'll need a contract." "I have one," said Izuku. Izuku gives him the contract, and Nadai informs Izuku that him joining his corporation could take some time away from Izuku, therefore lagging him behind on his grades. Izuku understands and says that he'll make up for it. Just as he was about to stamp the piece of paper, Nadai purposely stamped his desk instead. What are you doing?" asked Izuku. Nadai would continuously pound the stamp against the desk over and over again while explaining that he has all the help that he has, and why he should feel the need to even allow Izuku into his corporation. What more does he have to offer? The tapping noise then really gets to Izuku, and he places a hand underneath the path of the stamp, and Nadai stamps Izuku's wrist. Nadai looks deep into Izuku's eyes, and Izuku says, "Please stop doing that." Without even telling him, Nadai then placed a hand on Izuku's hand, using his quirk on him. Izuku quickly snatches his hand away, and in his mind, his team, if you may call it that, his wolves, have a few things to say. "Man, this man is acting like a child," said the smaller wolf. Werewolf Izuku then said, "I am feeling obligated to eat Nadai." "No, you cannot eat Nadai," Izuku said out loud. "What?" "Nothing. Anyway, I don't know what more I can do. I mean, especially after thinking about what you told me earlier, you are right. After taking All Might's responsibilities, I have to become the next symbol of peace. And yet, I feel like you're the one who can help me get there, but yet you refuse to help me. I honestly don't know what more I can do. Like, what more do you want from me?" Nadai stands up and says, "Well, if you really want to join my corporations, then you must take this stamp from my hand and stamp that contract yourself." Izuku looks at the contract, then at Nadai, then at his wrist, and says, "Alright, sounds easy enough, let's begin." Nadai then stands there, ready, But just as he thinks Izuku is about to do something, he backs up towards the desk where the contract was. "What are you doing?" asked Danae. Izuku then smirks and shows the stamp mark that he put on his wrist. And with it, he stamps the paper. Night-Eye was surprised that Izuku was able to trick him like that. Night-Eye says, "Good job, Izuku. Welcome aboard." Night-Eye and Izuku shake hands, and that is where I'm going to be leaving this part now. I hope you all enjoyed this episode, and we're almost there, yo. We are almost there. Man, I can't wait. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this episode of What If Deku Was a Firewolf. And if you made it to the end of this video, consider yourselves #blessed. And I hope everyone has a nice day. Goodbye.